Alhamdulillah, and we've reached the section on delusion and imagination. Those are close. Delusion and imagination. But delusion, I have actually footnote here with definition of the English word delusion. The act of deluding, deception, a misleading of the mind. That's the definition we want to talk about. The state of being deluded or misled. That which is falsely or delusively believed or propagated, false belief, error in belief, etc., here. And imagination, which is not necessarily a blunder. Imagination is not necessarily a blunder. It's not necessarily a belief or a misconception. Delusion and presumption, or delusion or presumption, is not proof for anything. Here, presumption means delusion in this context here. Mental judgments are proof. The creed is not supported by delusion or confusion or imagination. It is supported by sound intellect and authentic documents. This is what the Prophet came with, alayhi salatu wassalam, and what he taught us. This religion is supported by sound intellect and authentic documents. What are those authentic documents? The authentic Quran, which is preserved until resurrection day, and the authentic memorized sunnah of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam, and the verified documents of the Sunni scholars that are also transmitted by isnad. All of that is transmitted by isnad. I mean, the Quran and the hadiths and the books of the scholars and their statements. Of course, with details when it comes to the documents. I'm not saying every single document is. Every single documentation of something from a Muslim scholar is authentic. I'm not saying that, and I'm sure that you're not getting that impression from me. But this religion is supported by sound intellect and authentic documents. And if you were to talk to a non-Muslim about the authenticity of our documents, then make sure you have good knowledge in this subject, which you're going to get by studying hadith terminology. That's what's going to enable you to talk about the authenticity of our religious documents with strength. Also, illusion is not evidence. Illusion has more of a physical meaning than delusion. Those are still close, though. Delusion and illusion. But illusion is not evidence. We'll talk about some illusions, inshallah ta'ala. And being imaginable is not a condition for existence. Being imaginable is not a condition for existence. Did God not say in the holy hadith here means hadith Qudsi, did God not say in the holy hadith narrated by Al-Bukhari, أَعْدَدْتُ لِعِبَادِي الصَّالِحِينَ, typo right here, ibadi, there's an alif after the ba. But now I'm using this Mac and I don't know how to put the alif there. أَعْدَدْتُ لِعِبَادِي الصَّالِحِينَ مَا لَا عَيْنٌ رَأَتْ وَلَا أُذُنٌ سَمِعَتْ وَلَا خَطَرَ عَلَى قَلْبِ بَشَرٍ. Allah, invincible and great, said, I have prepared for my pious slaves what no eye has seen, no ear has heard, and what has never crossed any human's mind. So when it says no eye has seen it and no ear has heard it, that includes the angels. No prophet, no angel has seen, this is in reference to paradise. There is in paradise what has never been witnessed by any prophet or angel. Even though Adam used to live in paradise, he never saw it. And there are angels in charge of paradise, they never saw it. And has never crossed anyone's mind. So then that's a proof that being imaginable is not a condition for existence. Didn't we learn that Allah tabaraka wa ta'ala, He created the water and the arsh, the ceiling of paradise, and the high pen and the guarded tablet, four things, before He created light and dark. Yes, that's what we learned. Before He created light and dark. That's what complies with the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wassalam. كان الله ولم يكن شيء غيره وكان عرشه على الماء وكتب في الذكر كل شيء. Allah was, and there was nothing else. There wasn't anything else. Yani, there was no place, no space, no light, no dark, no air, no time. وَكَانَ عَرْشُهُ عَلَى الْمَاءِ. And His arsh was over the water. That means He created water first, as proven by some hadiths, other hadiths. And then He created the arsh, and He placed the arsh over the water. وَكَتَبَ فِي الذِّكْرِ كُلَّ شَيْءٍ. And He wrote everything into the dhikr. The dhikr here is the guarded tablet. He wrote everything in, meaning He made be written everything into the guarded tablet. He made everything be written into the guarded tablet. That's in reference to the creation of the high pen, al-qalam al-a'la, and al-lawh al-mahfuz. So all of those were created before He created light and dark. We can't imagine that. So being imaginable is not a condition for existence. So then you're going to talk to a Wahhabi and you're going to tell him something that he's unable to imagine, and then he's going to claim that you're denying the existence of Allah. Beware, O intelligent Muslim, for few people escape the blunder of imagination. Very important. Few people escape the blunder of imagination. Yani, you cannot let your imagination sweep you away. You need to be able to recognize when you are imagining something without actually having any evidence behind what you're imagining. Your imagination is naturally triggered. Like if I say to you right now, big red apple, or if I say to you, large metal door, or anything else I might say to you, you're not going to be able to stop yourself from imagining something. So you need to keep your imagination in check and keep your sound mind at the forefront, not your imagination. One should not use his imagination to judge matters that he never experienced. Examples of illusions and delusions are such as the sun sinking into the ocean at sunset. Does the sun sink into the ocean at sunset? It does not. But that's what it would look like. So if you didn't know better, you might think, like if you were, for example, a primitive pagan who lived somewhere close to the shore, and every night you might, or every evening, you might think the sun is dipping into the ocean, or the sky connecting to the earth in the horizon. The sky does not connect to the earth. Although that's what you perceive from your view. If you look into the horizon, you see the sky above you, you see the ground below you, and then you look into the horizon and you see the line of the horizon, and all you see is that the sky meets the earth. But the sky in reality doesn't meet the earth. The two sides of a road merging in the distance. The two sides of a road merging in the distance, same thing. Like these three are like pretty much the same thing. It's just different objects. The two sides of the road do not merge in the distance, but that's what appears to you. That's what it looks like. So you're not going to judge by this delusion. Yeah, you're not going to confirm that. And being certain that someone is home because a light is on, and perhaps even the car is parked out front. Being certain is the issue here. Yes, the light being on and the car being parked out front are clues. That's true. Where you're going to blunder here is when you take that as definitive evidence. And then you're going to talk to a person and tell him that maybe he's not home, and he's going to think you're being silly because his light is on and his car is parked out front. And you're not being silly. Actually, you're being meticulous. You're acknowledging the intellectual possibility. And you're acknowledging the fact that this, which is truly a clue, yes, is not definitive evidence. And some scholars counted reflections as a type of illusion, and they are. A reflection is, it's an illusion that Allah creates in a smooth surface. An illusion that Allah creates in a smooth surface. For that, a person may see himself wider or taller. That's how you know it's an illusion. In reality, one may see himself wider or taller in his reflection, or he may see the vastness of the sky in a small puddle or a mirror. Like you're looking in your rear view mirror and you see all the cars behind you. Your rear view mirror is like no bigger than your hand span. How are you seeing all the whole road behind you? This is an illusion. Also, imagination concludes that Allah exists in a place. That's what the imagination comes to. The imagination ends if you were to indulge in your imagination and not check your imagination, not put your imagination in check, because, you know, when you get accustomed to this knowledge and to the right belief, your imagination's not even going to get out of your grasp here, inshallah ta'ala. But when you don't have that and your imagination is like a wild animal, then it's going to end at God being in a place and having a form. A person might even imagine that God is wearing clothing, and they do imagine that. Because of being unable to imagine something shapeless, formless, colorless, beginningless, and endless, this cannot be imagined. When some person's mind is weak and you tell him about something shapeless, formless, colorless, beginningless, and endless, existing, something existing, but shapeless and formless and colorless and beginningless and endless, from the weakness of his mind, he would think that you are saying something absurd. However, the sound mind dictates that Allah exists without a place, because he existed before creating places and directions. Conversely, that means, on the other hand, to the contrary, many a matter is reached by reason while crippling the imagination. There are many things that if you use your mind, you will arrive at them soundly and correctly. And these things actually cripple the imagination. The imagination is unable to reach them. Like what we were just saying, the time before light and darkness. And this word "the" here is to say this is confirmed. The time, the confirmed time before light and darkness. Our Sheikh said it's obligatory to believe that there was a time before light and darkness. Allah said in the first verse of Surah Al-An'am, Alhamdulillahi alladhi khalaqa as-samawati wal-arda wa ja'ala adh-dhulumati wan-nur. The praise for his generosity is due to Allah, who created heavens and earth, the grandest creation seen by the people, and he made the darkness and the light. He made the darknesses, that's plural, al-dhulumat. He made the darknesses and the light. So if he made darkness and light, that means they didn't exist before he made them. And this proves that darkness is not merely an absence of light. That's why in the hadith, كَانَ اللَّهُ وَلَمْ يَكُنْ شَيْءٌ غَيْرُهُ. Allah was, and there wasn't anything else. A part of that which its existence is denied is darkness. If someone is not guided here, he might think that Allah existed and there wasn't anything else means Allah was in darkness, and he doesn't even realize that he's imagining something. But it's because he doesn't have a grip on his imagination. So the mind does confirm a time before light and darkness, although this cripples the imagination. Also, the indivisible particle, meaning the atom, the real atom, which is the indivisible piece, the unsplittable piece. It is unimaginable. How is unimaginable? Because too small for our senses to detect. None of our five senses can detect a single atom. So it's not something imaginable. And someone might say, I can imagine a single atom. You say to him, no, you can't, because whatever you imagined, you could split it in your imagination. It could split in your imagination. You are unable to imagine an unsplittable piece, because anything you can imagine, you could imagine it splitting. So this atom is unimaginable, though it is rational. How is rational? Because we see that the various things around us have different sizes. So then when I pick up, for example, here, let's see, if I pick up here a fingernail clipper. So this fingernail clipper has some amount of size, takes up some space. But compared to my laptop, it is much smaller, yani, relatively smaller at least, if not much. If the word much is too strong there. Yani, it is smaller. So what does that mean? What does that imply? This means that the laptop then, what makes it bigger rather, let me say, what makes the laptop bigger than the fingernail clipper? The fact that it has more pieces. The more pieces it has, the more space it's going to take up. So we knew by using our minds that there is something called an indivisible particle, or an atom if you want. And we did not know it by our imaginations. Some people, philosophers and others, they deny the existence of an indivisible atom. They say, no, there are atoms, but they are divisible. And what's their proof? They have no real proof. Their only proof is their imaginations. Now, we could talk about that a little bit here, but I don't want to. Inshallah, another time, if we talk about atoms, we could talk about arguing with those people who try to substantiate that atoms are splittable. But these pieces in reality are so small that they cannot be fractured. The scholar said they cannot be fractured. They said the indivisible piece, it can't be fractured for two reasons. One is because it literally is only a single piece, so you can't break it into two pieces. So you can't fracture it. And they said it's too hard. They said, لِصَلَابَتِهِ لَا يَتَكَسَّرُ لِصَلَابَتِهِ. It's too hard. One single atom. As well as a single indivisible moment of time. Same thing. A single indivisible moment of time, you cannot imagine it. But you can realize it by rationale, by thinking. And eternity and everlastingness. We cannot imagine that, but we can confirm it mentally. Let's say you talk to an atheist and he said, I don't believe in God. Who created God? I think the world has no beginning. You tell him, why would you think the world has no beginning? Look at what you are saying. Why confirm beginninglessness? Because you said if you believe the world has no beginning, you're confirming beginninglessness, but denying the existence of God. Why? Why are you putting yourself through that? If you're going to confirm eternity and beginninglessness, you might as well believe in God. So eternity is something rational. Beginninglessness is something rational. It's just not imaginable. And it's not rational for a creation also. Eternity in itself, in and of itself, is rational. Yani is something the mind does not deem impossible, but it cripples the imagination, as well as everlastingness. Also, one could only imagine some of heavens and earth. One could only imagine some of heavens and earth, not all of it. Although his mind confirms all of heavens and earth, because there has to be a totality to heavens and earth. One would be silly not to even be able to confirm that heavens and earth has a totality. Of course it does. So there is a totality for heavens and earth, but we are unable to imagine that totality. We're only able to imagine some of heavens and earth. Also, the endless things known to Allah and the endless things under his power are unimaginable. Yani, Allah knows everything. He knows himself, his eternal self. He knows the reality of his eternal being. And he knows the reality of his eternal attributes. And he knows about every single creation. And he knows about every single possibility. Yani, he knows every single creation. Like, for example, maybe one of you has a car. Do you know if someone perhaps walked by your car and he flicked his cigarette? He's done with his cigarette. So he flicked his cigarette and then it bounced off your car and it landed on the sidewalk. You don't know. Or maybe a leaf blew and fell on your windowsill outside and then blew away after that. You don't know. You will never, never, never know. Allah knows. Allah knows everything, and he knows every possibility. He knows what's not going to happen, and if it would happen, how it would happen. So that's beyond our imaginations, but our minds confirm that this is true. And the endless things under his power, because Allah has power over anything possible. Allah can create anything possible. Subhanallah wa bihamdi. I saw a video of a starfish. This starfish, it has like tentacles, many, I don't know, maybe hundreds of tentacles. And it's walking on the beach. The tentacles lift the starfish off of the sand and move the starfish towards the water. Yani, I couldn't even believe what I was seeing on video, let alone Yani. And there were people filming it, of course. Like there was like one girl, she said, "Wow." You could hear the amazement in her voice, seeing that with her own eyes. Very amazing. Subhanallah. Allah has power to create anything possible. So all of the endless things under his power are unimaginable, but our minds confirm that. And since imagination is removed from many confirmations, yani, there are many things that are real, but you can't imagine them. For sure, then, the eternal, glorified, and exalted, unique one cannot be summoned by the imagination. Allah says in the 42nd verse of Surah An-Najm, وَأَنَّ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ الْمُنْتَهَى. the intellects do not reach the reality of your Lord. Yani, very literally, and to your Lord is the limit, or and to your Lord is the extent. That's like my attempt to be very literal there. And the meaning, the tafsir, the interpretation of the ayah is the intellects do not reach the reality of your Lord. And before we get out of the book of ignorance, we want to cover one more thing, which is misconception. The author says the second type of ignorance is compounded ignorance. Compounded ignorance, the second type. So you might say, where's the first type? So maybe you didn't notice. When we first started the book of ignorance, says here, all the way at the top, ignorance is of two types. The first is mere ignorance, the sheer lack of knowledge. And then at that point, we never even said, and the second type of ignorance is, and I was waiting to see if anyone would ask me, but nobody did. Yani, that means the information flowed so smoothly for you, inshallah, that perhaps you didn't realize that the second type of ignorance wasn't mentioned yet. And all the way at the end of the book of ignorance, that second type of ignorance is documented. That second type of ignorance is called misconception, or it's called compounded ignorance. Jahl murakkab. It is conceiving something contrary to its reality. So what's mere ignorance? Mere ignorance is the sheer lack of knowledge. The sheer lack of knowledge is not a misconception. It's just an absence of knowledge. But what is compounded ignorance? It is a misconception. That means you are conceiving something contrary to its reality. Now, some scholars, in the books of Usul al-Fiqh, including Al-Waraqat by Imam al-Haramain, when they talk about this issue, they define knowledge. They say knowledge is realizing something as it truly is. And then they would say, and ignorance is misconceiving something. That's my streamlined translation right there. They would say, knowledge is realizing something as it is truly. And ignorance is misconception. That's what's in some of the books. So, according to those books, they defined ignorance as a misconception immediately. They immediately jumped to say ignorance is a misconception. But when you want to go into details and be meticulous, then you have to say, actually, ignorance is of two types. Not every ignorance is a misconception. There is fundamental ignorance, which is the sheer lack of knowledge of something. And then there is another type of ignorance, which is the misconception, such as conceiving the human as a neighing creature. Conceiving the human as a neighing creature. Neigh, that's the sound of a horse. And like I told you, all of what I'm telling you is from the Muslim scholars. I didn't make up this example. Conceiving the human as a neighing creature. So if someone thought the human being is a creature that neighs, then he has a misconception. Or believing that the eternal one is a body. That's a big misconception. The scholar said, whoever believes that Allah is a body cannot prove that the world is created. Because whatever he says to try to prove that the world is created is going to apply to what he worships. He's going to start trying to prove that the world is created, and then he's maybe going to realize that what he's saying applies to what he worships, and then he's going to shut his mouth. I don't think if you challenged the Wahhabi and told him, can you tell me why the world is created? Can you, like, I'm not talking about give me an ayah. Can you explain to me? Like, let's say a person doesn't believe in the Quran. He doesn't want you to give him any ayah or any hadith. Can you explain how the world is created? I don't think you'll be able to. Based on his massive blunder of worshiping a body in the first place, let alone his other types of ignorance. And another case is the assumption of the philosophers that the world is without beginning. So if a subject were realized differently from its reality, that ignorance is compounded because of two types of ignorance involved. It's compounded because of two types of ignorance involved. Because compound means put together. There's two types of ignorance involved here. Ignorance of the conceived issue. That means your true lack of knowledge here, your actual sheer lack of knowledge here, that's confirmed. And what's the other thing? Ignorance of being ignorant. Behind the fact that you do not know of your sheer lack of knowledge. So that's an ignorance upon ignorance. That's called jahlun murakkab, compounded ignorance. It is therefore ignorance upon ignorance, and put simply, it is a misconception. Mere ignorance is not a misconception. Wa subhanallahi wa bihamdihi. And we will stop there. Do you have any question I can answer for you?
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
You mentioned Imam al-Haramain. Is that Imam al-Juwayni, the teacher
Yes.
of Imam al-Ghazali?
Yes.
Okay.
And also I wanted to mention for you, because last time or not one time, you mentioned that this booklet here that we're reviewing, that you could see that it comes from the Aqidah of An-Nasafi following that thing.
No.
Also, there's another, this booklet here really has two main sources that are really the essence of this booklet. That Aqidah of An-Nasafi and the Waraqat of Imam al-Haramain.
Okay.
Because the Aqidah of An-Nasafi has the types of knowledge. But the Waraqat of Imam al-Haramain, and like other Usul al-Fiqh books, it has in it the issue of dhan and shak and wahm and jahl murakkab, jahl and jahl murakkab, all that's from Usul al-Fiqh. So the combination of those two is really the backbone of this booklet here. And then that was supplemented with other information that I had, just so that you know. Inshallah. Subhanaka Allahumma wa bihamdik. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت أستغفرك وأتوب إليك